so I'm getting ready to template this shower floor for a envelope cut with 12 by 24 travertine. Got my hot glue gun, template strips from Grand Quartz. So this floor is going to line up with the walls in both directions. You can see that. And that is with a centered layout on this wall, equal cuts on both sides. And then on this wall, the full tile is centered on the valve, even though the valve isn't quite perfectly centered with the wall, but it is centered between the glass in that corner. So by lining it up like that, it puts me a teeny bit off center from my drain. I could scooch that over a bit, but then I lose the ability to use that exact cutoff there because that's the perfect size we need. So the cool thing about the Flow FX drains is I can notch a teeny bit out of that grate carrier and actually place my drain right there and land on a full tile. So I got this template glued in place, and now I'm going through and marking my grout lines to make sure I get this right on the same pattern as my wall pattern will be. So it's gonna flow horizontally this way, and then this way they'll be running perpendicular to the horizontal tile. So I've marked that as well. And because this will be two tiles with the grout line, it's gonna make it a 1/16 of an inch wider than one tile going horizontally. So I need to remember to cut an extra width down the middle of these, an extra grout line, so that when I butt those two together with a spacer, it'll still be the same size as that 12 by 24. So I've marked all my grout joints all the way around. And I'm gonna go choose some really cool tiles and lay them out on the floor in the other room and mark it out. You can see how this drains a little bit off center. I just take a teeny notch out of that. Boom. All right, so I sorted through and got some cool stone. If it was my shower, or if I had full creative freedom, I would pick a bunch with book match veins and run those book match veins clear through the shower floor, but the client does not want that. They want more random, so such is life. Also, whenever you book match stone like that without really an approval, you risk them not liking it or it looking like a giant demon head or a vagina or something. And so you just always got to be careful with book matching stone. And I have had both of those instances happen. And one time the client loved it. Another time they did not like it quite so much. So anyway, I'm going to wait and trace this tomorrow after I get their approval, but you can see I've got it all laid out, meeting up with my lines everywhere, and my drain lands right on a grout joint. So pretty happy with that. All right, so I've got my envelope cut marked out from my shower corners to my drain corner. I've got these pieces marked because I'm going to try to use my cutoffs to wrap up the wall on these two sides. It may or may not work, but I'm going to save them just in case. Because it's always cool if you can flow from the floor to the wall, you know, when you can. So, even though this drain isn't perfectly centered with the floor or the layout, I think it's still going to look good. It's landing on a full tile there. And you end up having, you know, some different sized triangles in the corners, but that's okay. The overall look, I think, is going to work out. One thing to remember when templating or doing an envelope cut with like a really patterned or veiny tile is if you break one of these pieces, say that corner breaks off, you got to recut it. You also got to recut this piece to keep your veining running through both of those cuts so it looks natural. So this is all cut in. One thing I mentioned yesterday, because I'm trying to line two tiles up that way with one tile this way, I had to shave a 1/16 of an inch, just a blade width off this row here. Otherwise, that would have been a 1/16 of an inch too wide to line up. And honestly, most people won't ever see or care about that, but I'm a super big nerd and I would care about it. So that should line up. Now, one thing to consider, when I lay this into the shower floor and it slopes, a lot of those joints are gonna pinch. So I like to dry lay it first and make sure that when I do that, all of my little cross sections here still line up. That's something I always notice on envelope pans. If those are off or tweaked, I think it looks kind of hacky. Again, most people won't notice. It just takes a little extra time to get it all lined up. And So I'm gonna go dry lay it, as long as it fits, mix up some thin set and set it. Okay, I've got this all laid in here dry, making sure all my lines line up. And when I sloped this floor, I was really careful to try to slope it as 4 flat planes instead of a bowl. If you just come in here and pack it like a bowl, you're gonna have a lot of rocking tiles and a lot of voids that you need to fill with thin set. If you can keep those 4 planes as flat as possible, you're gonna use a lot less thin set, a lot less chance of having voids under your tile when you set it. So yesterday I mentioned my drain is a teeny bit off center from where I wanted my layout, about a 1/4 inch. But one of my favorite things about the FlowFX drain, and I'm not saying FlowFX approves this, but I'm not saying they don't either. I can notch that grade carrier on my tile saw just a teeny bit, and my drain will still work with my shifted layout. Plenty of room for water to drain. It doesn't affect that at all. Just a cool trick that I use a lot to nail layouts. So I pulled all my pieces up, and I'm going to install this in quadrants. 1, 2, 3, 4. Work my way out of the shower. So just like I set my floor, I like a double notch, 1/4 by 3/8 U notch. That's my favorite trowel for pretty much anything larger than a 12 by 12. And I like a double notch because it gives me a little bit of extra squish so I can micro tune the height on these, especially with this slope. I go a little thick on the back butter even just to make sure. I'd rather squeeze a bunch out than have to pick it up and add more and risk breaking this fragile stone. So 1 quadrant at a time, making sure I stay on my lines, and we'll see how it goes. I want to make sure that these perimeter pieces are level, especially when you get to the corners. They have a tendency to kick up right there. So I am really careful to make sure my perimeter is level. Otherwise I'm going to end up having taper cuts all the way around, which isn't the end of the world. It's just a pain in the ass. I'd rather just throw straight cuts on there. It'd be easier, it looks better. And I like a lot of squeeze out, especially with stone. That tells me that I've got really good coverage. It's a lot easier to clean out extra squeeze out than it is to lift it up and add more. So that's what I want to see when I'm setting stone, especially pieces with little teeny pointy corners like that. I want to make sure everything's got 100% coverage on a shower floor. Those little corners are so easy to break. So I just squish it in until it's about where I want it, and then swipe it out, clean it with the sponge, adjust it back into place, check it for level, make sure both those corners are level, and then I'll do that corner and repeat. So that's what I want to see at my cross joints. I want to see these 2 lining up, and I want to see those 2 lining up nice and clean. I don't want them to jump one way or the other. And it's hard. A lot of times I'll cut it all perfect, think it's perfect, and then when I lay it and the slope affects it, or maybe I tweaked somewhere and those are off a little, and to me it looks bad, but like I said, most customers are probably not ever going to even look at that. That's just a tile nerd kind of thing. And tons of squeeze out is what you want. I just finished cleaning a ton of squeeze out of that. I like to squish it in, let it ooze out, clean it out. That way I know I've got Mondo coverage. Okay, so I'm halfway done, and you always want to remember to check yourself when you get to this point. If you've twisted a little bit out of alignment, once you wrap around and try to meet these 2, it's gonna kick all your lines off. I know, because it's happened to me before a couple times. So I always check this with a straight edge, make sure it's dead on before I proceed. All right, that is all installed. Everything went pretty well. I'm super happy with it. I like to wedge my perimeters so they don't slide around as I'm really squishing down in, because I really like to squish hard and get lots of squeeze out. So I like to put wedges and spacers in so nothing moves. Drain worked out pretty good. Pretty happy with that. All my little crosshairs turned out pretty good. So yeah, I am happy with it, and I love doing envelope pans. It's actually one of my favorite things to do these last few years, and our clients seem to really like them. It's a good alternative to, you know, if you can't pick a mosaic that you really like, I got so sick of doing the 2x2 matching porcelain crap, so this is a fun option. Anyway, I'm going to grout this floor and then go out to dinner with my wife. So thanks for watching.